It's hard to believe for me, but New World's been out for just over 4 years now, and it's come a long way. Now, I've played well over 2,000 hours in the first year of release. I mostly stepped away from the game outside of a brief stint in 2022. I always loved New World's combat. I love the sound, the general environment. Recently, I've put in about another 100 hours on and off stream with the release of Season 10, and just wanted to give my thoughts on how New World has changed and will the hype of Season 10's Nighthaven last the test of time. Now, there's a lot of returning players I've seen like myself, or just completely brand new ones, so I'm going to quickly cover a bit of what has changed. New World has functionally changed to an action RPG now, with the release of Eternum last year when it released also for consoles. This is really just for rebranding purposes. Frankly, it still fits very much as an MMORPG, and it honestly represents a stagnant genre quite well in 2025. So that Eternum update dropping last year in 2024 was like mid-October, really saved the game. It was at its lowest point pretty much ever. It hit 5,000 in like July, August. Active players. It was on death's doorstep pretty much at that point. Big update comes, huge surge of players. This is when it also dropped in console. And the thing with the Steam charts is going forward from here is you're not going to see the console numbers. We only see the PC, Steam client ones. Pretty interesting. And this is what a patch update looks like pretty much every time with New World. It happens once a year. They get a big update in fall, huge surge of players, and then a tail off. This is last year's, for example. It shot up to 61,000 people, and by November, it's down to like 25,000. And let's bounce back to kind of the wider stretch graph here. I mean, this is where we are with the current patch. It was doing much better leading up to this than, say, last year, and we have a surge, but it's not as high. Now, it seems the highest point they've hit here is 50K, which isn't bad, and again, that doesn't account for console players. But it's worth noting these are self-inflicted wounds. AWS didn't actually open enough server capacity when they dropped this patch. Very strange choice, considering they actually had more people in the Eternum patch last year. For example, these are all the New World servers they currently have. Any of these guys that have these symbols means you can't transfer there, and you can't make a character there. All right, and these are queues. This is 10 days into the patch. You would think by now, with the amount of patches they've gone through, that they would have this stuff sorted out, but they don't. And NA servers are up here. They'll go through this later in the day. It's the same thing every day. But it's worth mentioning this stuff because I'm going to go through kind of the Nighthaven patch, and I actually think this Nighthaven Season 10 patch is pretty damn good. There's a lot of good things. There's a few bad things. And one of the worst things is actually the fact that they didn't open up server capacity or immediately fix that issue, because that could have been resolved after day one. But not only did they not open up enough servers, but people can't transfer to play with some of their friends, so they're stuck on some shitty ass new server. And either way, like some environments like EU or something have been stuck in queues almost every single day, and it's like 10 days in, still having queue problems, so there's people that have to wait like an hour to play the game. Overall, this has led to mixed reviews as well on Steam, which doesn't bode well for them. But let me hop into Season 10 a little more and talk about my thoughts on it, kind of everything that's changed and updated for returning players, new players. So even though those numbers don't show it, this year's hype felt a little different to me for this patch, as I haven't bothered to pop into New World for a couple years. It just seemed to have a lot more organic hype around it. There was no paid sponsorship pushes really, and people in game mostly seem to be enjoying it, but there are a few issues I need to discuss. So they've put in some quality of life updates. If you remember some of the dumb systems, like the watermark system at release, this was a criminal design, a true punishment for players at release. That system is gone. They had sort of replaced it a year later with the expertise system, which involved farming gypsum orbs, and you could kind of manually level this stuff up. And while it was a bit better, it wasn't a fun way to chase your gear score, and it just kind of gated the process. This is also gone. Time gating in general has seemed to have been reduced. We had time-gated mutations that went from M1 to M10. That has all been reworked. Mutations going to M10 is where I actually first called it quits the first time I played New World. Now, they still do have mutations, but they function as a weekly rotated thing. There's 3 of them a week you can queue up. It goes from M1 to M3, and you can just get better loot by doing the harder ones. The difficulty is just through different mechanics, things hit harder, not something where you just carry various elemental sets like you used to beat the same content. Overall, this is an improvement. There's other stuff that's been added to the game since returning, like new OPR maps, a new PvP mode. There is Capture the Flag, which is a different kind of PvP mode. There are 3v3 arenas, which have been out since Brimstone. They've reworked the open world PvP options. There's unique items called artifacts. These really help shape new kinds of builds or kind of amplify builds. That's a pretty cool concept. On the PvE side of the fence, there are now full-blown raids, and also the mutation reworks I think are a step in the right direction for the PvE experiences. They've additionally added Catacombs, which is a full-on PvE experience that comes in this Nighthaven patch. I'll get into that a little more, but overall it's pretty much a 3-man roguelike experience, a risk versus reward, extract at the end type thing. All in all, it's just something more for the PvE endgame to grind. I've noticed that desync in combat seems to have either been fixed completely or at least greatly improved. I had a lot of rubber banding that occurred back in the first year, frustrated the hell out of me whenever I'd swap into melee gameplay. Mounts have been added to the game with the Angry Earth expansion, which actually people get for free now with the Nighthaven update, which is pretty awesome. I wasn't too interested or keen on getting a mount before. It didn't bring me back to the game when they had announced it, but I honestly can't imagine playing the game now that I have used them. There are just a lot of standout big things that you will immediately feel when you come back to the game as a returning player. But not everything has felt great, so I want to focus on the Nighthaven update specifically and shift into some of the wider issues I have felt as a returning player. So the Nighthaven Season 10 update brought a new zone that extended the main story quest. I didn't care too much about the quest, honestly, and apparently neither did the voice actors.
For the Tear of Gaia? Is it truly real? Help us, and perhaps you can hunt down Asina. I'm sure she's not far from the battle.
Now the zone looks really cool, but there is a huge amount of empty space in it. The aesthetic is great, but it could use a little more stuff between every point of interest. Kind of just feels like empty areas in between little camps. I think it would have been cool to have like more vampire werewolf stuff. At least that's the vibe I was getting when I thought we were hopping into it. But anyway, it has a new PvE mode, the Catacombs. I haven't done as much of them as I'd like, but it seems all right. I mean, it's basically a dungeon experience on a timer, and it's cool. You get to pick up buffs and choose as you go. The more you kill, the deeper you get to go, and the better the rewards. I think it sounds better than it probably is in principle, honestly. I just kind of hated how much I'm just running from room to room. It sounds a lot better than it plays out, honestly, when you describe it. But I mean, I like the concept of it, or what it can and should be. But I think they just need to work on the execution maybe this a little more. You know, just put me in a room or two and throw waves at me or something. Let me choose things between rounds. I originally envisioned that and I didn't look too much into it pre-patch, but either way, I'm kind of a little underwhelmed with it, but it's nice to have something more endgame PvE-wise, but that's my general take on Catacombs so far. Onto PvP, there is a new OPR map, and that is great. Anything but the original is actually new to me, so I appreciate this. OPR, though, still has the same issues for me as it did 3 years ago. Pre-mades can stomp these games with a good bruiser squad and a healer. Now, the community will tell you to just bring your own pre-made, and they're not really wrong, but I've seen both sides of this fence, and the problem with it is it creates a difficult barrier of entry to ease players into enjoying these kinds of game modes. As a result, there are often like 2 to 5 people every OPR match that will just go AFK after the very first engagement. If they lose the fight, they feel the whole match is lost, and they would rather just end it sooner and go AFK than drag it out. It's a long-term issue that's been going on with OPR, but it's pretty sad because overall, I actually love OPR conceptually. It's one of my favorite arena-type PvP games in any MMOs. It mixes in some PvE stuff, some building, but the execution, the team bounce, is still rough here in 2025. But on the topic of PvP modes, we have some new modes. We have Capture the Flag. I think this was in Season 9 it was added, and I really enjoy this one. It feels like a more casual approach than OPR, doesn't have as much team stacking from my experiences. It's honestly just great for pugging. Teams are smaller, it's faster matches. Overall, these matches just seem to have a more consistent player experience than, say, OPRs. So I highly recommend checking them out if you haven't already. 3v3 is probably my favorite overall, though. It strikes a great balance of fun and competitive. You will get good matches here. You'll learn how to play your character. You can improve here probably the best. Highly recommend 3v3s for just learning, testing your builds, figuring out how people will kill you. All in all, they have made big strides in the PvP queuing modes. They've reworked open world PvP as well. It's worth mentioning they have these time windows now to push territory conflicts for open world PvP. This is a lot better than how it used to be. You would just randomly push territory by doing quests. You could counter it by also doing open world quests. It was really goofy. Now you just have windows. It funnels PvP traffic there. It leads to just some good open world battles. I'd say the only downside I'm seeing here right now is in update 10. Bows and muskets seem to be tearing ass, and if you run around solo, you're pugging, you're going to get mowed down by rifle fire. So this may also scare off some newer players that may have some pretty bad experiences early on with it. But all this works together in conjunction with a PvP track system now. It has some great rewards. Really love all this. I love what New World has done here. They have worked on their PvP. They've not given up on it. They've developed other modes. I believe they're still working on developing more modes. I don't know. It's just like by year 4 in a lot of MMOs, that's where New World's at. Year 4, they have all but abandoned their PvP efforts. That's what most games are doing. They take what they've had by like year 4 or 5, and they're just trying to milk whatever casual PvE audience they have. So hats off to New World for continuing to support PvP and doing something here and making a pretty fun experience. Now moving off of PvP and getting back to the update, they also raised the level cap from 65 up to 70. Now this also moved the gear cap from 725 up to 800. This is generally good. It results in everyone needing to upgrade gear and a new gear chase, which is always good. It puts everyone on the same field of finding new items, going out needing to farm. No one's in BIS anymore on day 1. They added set bonuses for the first time as well, and reworked their trait system. Now this is where things get bumpy with Season 10. There are so many perks, or charms, and infixes to gear. There is this huge list of new perks all across the board. There's different things that drop in different areas. The game doesn't tell you this, but you can find a lot of this info on websites, various videos. Then simultaneously on Amazon's side, they're trying to hotfix some of these things, saying they're going to address some of them, not doing it. So some of the glaring issues are not being fixed very quickly. Ultimately, this system is confusing as hell to newer, returning players. I mean, it's confusing to players who had never stopped playing. The general approach just seems to be that the community is waiting on videos of people telling them what to farm and what is BIS from New World content creators, because it's just too confusing to figure out for yourself. Now, I love theory crafting. I appreciate the variety of builds that they're trying to promote here, which is what the devs were going for with this update. They've unfortunately created a convoluted system though. It all flows through RNG as well, which is fine, because they don't want you to get BIS gear in a week, but a big part of the issue here is how you have to go about it. There is not just a wide variety of traits and options, but the real skill this update is learning how to filter your equipment. You get inventories full of hundreds of legendary items, and you have to spend your time reading and destroying 99% of it. You're essentially just picking through piles of loot every day, looking for a decent option here and there. Now you get better at sorting through this stuff over time, but it doesn't change the fact that it's actually an exhausting way to manage your character and gameplay. The gear system is unavoidable, and it felt like a larger issue to me returning to the game. I had over 1,000 items in my warehouse I had to destroy when I returned on day 1. Anything that you had or have that's under 700 gear score, it is useless. So just destroy it, and that is fine. But there's all sorts of other items. There's blueprints, there's these recipes, various charms for crafting. This game is just filled with so much goddamn unique shit, it is unbelievable. The database management of Amazon is phenomenal, but this system is screaming for a cleanup. There's just so much trash in your inventory. I have like 20 different warehouses, and I actually need all of them to try to manage sorting stuff until I have time to dedicate to actually go through it. The inventory management is just too much. It's overwhelming. I've actually logged out a couple times in the last week just because I got fed up of dealing with my inventory, sorting through 100 items and getting to the end of it and realizing I have nothing of value that I wanted, and it took me 30 minutes to just destroy everything. So the bloat is real. It's not just this patch. It is worse this patch, but the user experience for players that never quit between patches won't be as bad. But if you're coming back to this game and it's been years, you will feel like you're just digging through piles of trash. Like, why do I still have a 5-piece outfit in my inventory for every single profession as well and gathering activity in the game? It is just a masochistic level of inventory design at this point. This pain point also reminds me there is an excellent new feature though. You can save gear setups though and easily swap your weapon setups. Love this one, alright? It just makes it very easy. You can swap from like a healer to a tank to a damage dealer. It's very nice. Love this. But you do need to buy extra slots with money for more. Just having the feature is nice. But all in all, the inventory nightmare that they have created needs to be addressed on multiple fronts. Not only in how this patch looks, but just in general of how people's inventory looks. There shouldn't be like hundreds and hundreds of items. It's just unnecessary. Beyond acquiring gear and finally deciding on something, you'll use Umbral Crystals, which are used in the new system to upgrade your gear from 700 something to 800 gear score. Now these are acquired in lots of ways like PvE and PvP activities, as well as a fan favorite of New World, chest runs. That's right, chest runs are back and people largely hated these at release, as this is how you raised your gear score. You don't have to do these anymore, but they are a great way to farm various supplies for charms, your Umbral Crystals, and an abundance of items in a very short time daily. Basically, these are very efficient. So you see these massive zergs of people doing them all the time. Now this isn't a deal breaker for me, but I think it kind of sucks. Doing chest runs and having them be what they are, it's just not great content. I wouldn't mind something like this once a week, but every goddamn day? They're very good to do, and that's why people are doing them, because you get a lot done in a short window. I'd like to have more activities that have rewards like this, and people will say, well, just don't do them, go do something else then. But it's really that these efficiently check multiple boxes. You get lots of gold items while also getting your umbrals, and still getting a chance at other stuff, including your charms. But all in all, chest runs are a thing in 2025, not needed. You could do 3v3s or something to farm crystals too, but chest runs, highly efficient, definitely something you will see people spamming in chat all day. So what's the overall consensus on this patch? Steam reviews would tell you mixed, and that's mostly due to the server issues though that we talked about earlier. These are real issues impacting a ton of players, whether they're in queues, never made it back into the game, or they just simply quit real fast because they ran into some inconvenience or couldn't sync up with their friends. This is Amazon's biggest blunder. Beyond that, the item bloat, it's pretty ugly. It's a huge time sink of crap that is not adding value. I think you're going to see the effects of this over the course of the next couple weeks. Now, if you can manage to look past those two outstanding issues, there are a lot of good things here. I feel New World Season 10 is actually their best update that I've played. For me, I'd say this is the kind of update that puts it back on the map to check in on this from time to time. Beyond that, there's just a lot of content for newer or returning players to check out if they enjoy where things are at and how the game feels. Now the problem is, this only lasts a couple of months and then players seem to dip out. Now other games' seasonal models will successfully attract players in every 3 months or so to provide a long-standing success. In my opinion, some of Nighthaven's successes set it up to do that best. It has some new weapons and game modes coming in the future, but again, Steam charts show another story. It may be that the meta is figured out in another week or two for a majority of the game, and it just becomes a stale environment with little change even in its next update. I'd like to think not. The MMO genre in general is filled with a lot of absolutely awful games when it comes to PvP. Whether it's the combat itself or just the pay-to-win models, New World does not falter in either of these common points. New World's failure is maintaining interesting gameplay over periods of time and keeping people invested beyond that in PvE. I don't think they have all the answers there yet, unfortunately, but I'd like if they could make another larger, exciting update maybe every 6 months to shake up their meta and farming, just like they're doing in this update. Beyond that, learn from your server issues and fix that in the future, because there are a lot of people you're missing that you could be roping in if they could just simply get in and play with their friends. Ultimately, from a content perspective, I really do like Nighthaven. It's got a couple glaring issues, but overall, it's been a pretty great experience. I don't expect it to ever return to its height of nearly 1 million people at release, but what they do need to work on is changing this kind of story where it just continuously drops off, peaks up, and you'll notice in each of these peaks, you have 137k here, 77, 61, and now we've kind of peaked at like 50 here, but we do have console players included. They could work at changing some of this again, maybe trying to do something every 6 months instead of just having this big thing every 12 months, maybe kind of moving the bars and getting people involved in more of a PvE system. I still enjoy it. I really like the combat, and I'd probably continue to pop in and check out PvP updates if the combat ever gets interesting. It's really once it kind of gets stale and you farm the items, it's kind of over at that point and you look for other things. But if you guys have tried out Season 10 and agree, disagree with some of my thoughts, let me know. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I cover MMOs. I'll be covering a bit of New World, I'm sure, and we'll be branching out looking at other stuff too. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Take care until I see you for the next one.